Books Newsmaker Saturday starts now.
Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker Saturday. In a year that saw Republican candidates go down to defeat in the state's top offices, one Republican bucked the trend. State Treasurer Kimberly Yee. She got more votes than any other candidate for statewide office. Governor-elect Katie Hobbs, more than Mark Kelly. Kimberly Yee is my guest on Newsmaker Saturday. Great to see you.
Great to see you, John. Thanks for having me.
Were you surprised that you overperformed?
Well, thank you.
Or did you in your mind?
I worked very hard in my campaign to ensure that we had a message for everybody. And I went to all 15 counties, even the most remote of our counties, to send the message, that we really need to care about this state and talk about the real issues. And I think we saw that because we had so many crossover voters in this race.
You
and
did.
We saw that with the numbers. I mean, Yavapai County, which is a Republican-heavy county, we exceeded the number of registered Republicans in the total number of votes, which means we had to have had independents and Democrats cross over and vote.
I think you got 100,000 more votes than Katie Hobbs.
I did.
Who won the top job. So what did you do? And Tom Horn, it's still outstanding because there's a recount going on, but that's right. Usually pro forma, and the results are usually the same. So Tom Horn may be the other Republican who survives. But what did you do that Kari Lake, Mark Fincham, and Abe Hamadeh did not?
It's so important to get back to the real issues that matter to Arizonans. And I was born and raised in this great state. And I have seen our state change in the way that we are a competitive state. We have independents in a growing number of registered voters. And of course, we have to talk to moderate Democrats. As a Republican, I did all of that, and I saw that in the numbers that came in. And it was so important to stay on point in issues that matter to them, like the economy, on security, on making sure their families, the border. I talked about the border, and believe it or not, that was one of the #1 issues across the board.
Did you want President Trump's endorsement?
It was very important for me to stay on my campaign, and that's what I did, and I saw that in the results. One of the things that I found very important was to talk to families who really didn't normally participate in elections, working moms, those who are college-educated women in the suburbs, just like me, and these were people who wanted to be engaged in the process, and they were otherwise turned off by other rhetoric, and I thought that was something that we really need to embrace, and that's something that came together when we saw our results.
In this, you flirted with Governor. Of course, you announced you ran, and about a year ago, it'll be a year in January. You got out of the race early, before any primary votes were cast. You got out. Why did you get out? You were trying to run for governor. Why did you get out? Was it that Kari Lake, her celebrity, Karen Taylor Robson's money? Did you feel that there wasn't a lane for you?
It's very important to go over so many different things. But the real reason for a person who is a leader of the state, and I have served as state treasurer for these last 4 years, is to take a look at the best interest of the state of Arizona. And looking at our economy and looking at the unsure nature of our finances, we really need to make sure that this office of the state treasury was maintained in hands that knew the job. And I know this job as state treasurer, and I wanted to ensure that we maintain that consistency, that experience in the next 4 years, and that's why I changed over to run for state treasurer.
We've got a picture of you on the trading floor. I want to show it because a lot of people have no idea what the treasurer does. You guys have basically a trading floor.
We do.
And you are investing taxpayers' money in other instruments to try to maximize what we earn on that money, which gives us an even bigger budget cushion. Right now, we've got a $5 billion surplus in this state. $5 billion.
Yes.
How much of a part of that is you in your office investing that money?
When I started in 2019 as state treasurer, we had $15.4 billion in assets under management. And at the end of this fiscal year, we had $30.2 billion in assets under management. That is a 96% increase. And over just these 45 months of me being in office as treasurer, we have earnings of $2 billion. And this is in the middle of a global pandemic. So really what we do is we invest money wisely. We ensure that there are greater returns on those investments, and we invest safely and wisely and prudently so that the money goes back to the taxpayer.
So you can't, for instance, crypto would not be in your portfolio?
It's not legal tender in Arizona, and it's not recognized federally.
How much in equities? I'm just curious.
We maintain various portfolios, and we ensure that we have, portfolios for our local government, investment pools, as well as maintaining investments for our land endowment, which is the Permanent Land Endowment Trust Fund. So there's lots of different things that we invest in, but one of the things that we ensure is that we maintain a public accountability to what we invest in. And so you can see on our public website at aztreasury.gov everything that we have, and that changes month to month.
So versus a personal investor in their account, they may be trying to hit a home run. You're not trying to hit home runs. You're trying to make sure you don't take a big hit.
It has to maintain absolutely safety,
you gotta be safe.
Liquidity before yield.
What is a typical return on all that money in a year?
Well, let me give you an example. In this fiscal year, we will have $300 million in earnings. Just alone, and that's like 765% increase year over year than this time last year.
This is gravy on top of tax money brought in.
Just interest earnings, that's right.
So it's incredible. Your backstory is very interesting. First Chinese-American Republican woman to win a major statewide office in the history of the United States. What do you want to do next?
Oh, wow. Well, I'm excited about January because I'll be taking my oath of office to, serve another 4 years as state treasurer. And I love serving the people of Arizona. I did so when I was in the state legislature and was Senate Republican Majority Leader. This is the work that I have committed to because the state and this country have given so much to my family.
Let's talk about that for a minute. Your grandparents were immigrants.
Yes.
Here. They ran a grocery store.
Just down the street, yes. South Phoenix, back in the 1930s, my grandfather and grandmother opened a little grocery store on the corner of 7th Avenue and Buckeye Road, and they called it New State Market because Arizona was still a newly established state back then, but it was also a new opportunity for my grandfather to build a business, a grocery business, and have that on that corner for 63 years in Arizona.
So you, I think you went to Greenway. Did you go to Greenway?
Greenway High School.
Greenway High. Okay, and then you end up at Pepperdine.
Pepperdine University,
Then you work for Pete Wilson in the governor's office in California. You got that job through some type of fellowship?
I did,
okay.
Yes.
Then you work for Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yes, Governor Schwarzenegger.
Tell me about him.
Oh, Governor Schwarzenegger, I mean, what a personality. He won that election, and I wasn't a partisan on his campaign or anything. They called me, and I was working in the Arizona State Senate on the Education Committee, and they called and said, Kimberly, would you like to come back to Sacramento and serve as a deputy cabinet secretary for Governor Schwarzenegger? And it was one of those situations where California was in a fiscal crisis, and they were in the red. So they wanted somebody who would come in and think outside of the box to get them back into the black.
Right.
And that's what I did.
This was following Gray Davis.
Absolutely. Right. They overspent the money they had. So one of the things that I did was I shared how you can bring government back into order, decreasing the size and scope of government, reducing waste and fraud that we saw in various agencies.
You were impressed with him?
I was impressed with his leadership.
Good guy to work for?
Very much so. I mean, he's certainly changed in his leadership style over time. I left after his first term, and I came back to Arizona. I worked for Dean Martin, our former state treasurer.
Right, exactly. That's, I think, when we first met. I went down there to do a story on the trading floor to show what the treasurer does because it's a mystery.
That's right.
To a lot of people. Okay, so you run for treasurer in 2018. You'd been the Senate Majority Leader. I think you did a stint. You were appointed to the County Board of Supervisors as well, right, at one point?
No.
You weren't on the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors?
I was not, no. They appointed me to fill the position for a House seat that was vacant in 2010.
The board appointed you.
That's right.
And then you ran.
And then I ran that fall.
Okay.
Yes,
Pardon me on that one.
No worries.
Then you end up Senate Majority Leader.
I was the second female.
How well did you know Kirsten Sinema?
I served with her while I was over in the House, and she was serving in the Senate.
Okay, tell me what you make of her move this week.
In declaring her party affiliation as independent. You know, any public person who has to go through a campaign makes strategic decisions based on what the polls say. And perhaps this could have been that a primary was in store, and perhaps this was a move to avoid a primary in the Democrat Party.
In your case, I mean, the fact that you have already run for governor, even though you got rid of that campaign, you stopped it early on, it suggests you want to try for a higher office. Do you feel that Donald Trump and his alignment with candidates, is that not as much of a factor now?
We'll have to see. I mean, he has declared a run for president, and it's early on. You know, we're going to see how that comes together and what other candidates come into play. And I think it remains to be seen, really, what that factor would be. Again, it's so early. We haven't seen what other nominees will be out there. I have supported Donald Trump's economic policies. I have a record of standing on the stage at the 2016 Republican National Convention.
I was there.
Supporting.
I saw it. Yep.
We interviewed together back then. And so I certainly support whoever the nominee is in that situation. And it was in 2016 where we saw that. But it's a long time that we've seen differences in so many of what Arizona has become. We have so many independents here in Arizona who really need to have that voice at the table. And so that is how I have run my leadership style, is to bring all voices to the table. And I think we saw that in the numbers of this election.
This is kind of where Kirsten Sinema is right now as well. Okay, this week you announced that the state of Arizona will not do business with investment giant BlackRock. I think we've got $540 million. With them?
Yes, 543.
That we're gonna do something else with it.
Right.
And you said it's because the traditional asset manager has turned into a political action committee.
That's right.
Is that strictly up to you to make that call?
It's important for the state treasury to ensure that we are prudently investing our funds in companies that stand for Arizona and its customers, which are our taxpayers. And as we have seen companies such as BlackRock go a completely different direction
Would you say, in a nutshell, woke?
It has absolutely gone woke. I said that in my statement that I released this week, that we have gone away from traditional financial principles in this space. And they've gone completely towards social issues, wokeism, and these are things that really...
Not investing in oil or gasoline. I mean, those are those kinds of decisions that impact public policy.
Right. And so we have to stay true to these traditional financial instruments. And when we see that go astray, we have to do something about it. And that's what we did this week.
And you did this before divesting in Unilever in 2021. That's the owner of Ben & Jerry's, after the ice cream producer decided to discontinue business in Israel's settlements.
That's right.
You've been down this road before.
Well, when Ben & Jerry's last summer decided they would boycott Israel, they've been manufacturing ice cream in Judea and Samaria for 30+ years. And that was truly a boycott. And in seeing that, it was anti-Semitic and discriminatory. And we really went in to stand with our friends in Israel. So I divested $143 million of Unilever money, which is owned, Ben & Jerry's subsidiary.
Yeah.
And
oh, no, go ahead.
And so one of the things that we have done in our office is, again, go back to our traditional principles of investing in companies that only stay true to the consumers and not social issues.
I got one more, 30 seconds. We go to the flat tax here in this state a year early, 2.5% flat tax. What do you think that'll do to the Treasury?
We'll see growth in what we have already economically because people will be able to thrive. As we've seen in Arizona, we are the third highest growing state in the country, with Florida and Texas, ahead of us. We need to continue that competitive nature of our tax base and bring continued competition in Arizona with our economy. And with that, we'll see the numbers as we have these last several years. I think that's something that we will maintain resiliency in our economic viability, and we will thrive.
You think it'll be a good thing?
It's a good thing, especially if the rest of the country sees a recession.
Kimberly Yee, congratulations on your re-election.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate having you on the program. When we come back on Newsmaker Saturday, with a rough economy, more and more people face eviction. When someone is removed from their home, that is the job of the constable. It is a very dangerous, sometimes deadly job. We're going to talk with one of them coming up next on Newsmaker Saturday. Back on Newsmaker Saturday, every election we vote on the position of constable, and some people may be perplexed. Maricopa County has 26 elected constables, but many of us probably don't have any idea what the constable actually does. Well, they issue orders of protection, they issue summons, subpoenas, and serve evictions. And that may be the most dangerous part of the job of all. Removing someone from their home or residence is a potential powder keg, as we recently saw in Pima County, when the Pima County constable, Deborah Martinez-Garabay, was among 4 people killed as they were attempting to serve an eviction notice on a man in an apartment complex. A Maricopa County constable was also fired upon a couple of months ago serving an eviction. So we thought, you know, this situation, we thought it would be a good time to talk to Constable Mike Branham, who is the Arrowhead precinct constable and has had a whole career in law enforcement. Mike, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for inviting us this evening.
Your job has a little bit of, you know, people don't really understand, I think. But if they're getting served an eviction, they understand. And that is a volatile, really dangerous part of your job.
We like to talk about it with a number of different people and help them understand there's never a winner in any eviction case. They are some of the most emotional things people can go through. One of the things that the viewers probably don't see is that there are only 3 ways in which the law enforcement agency or agent can come into your home, and a writ of restitution is one of those. And a writ of restitution is the very last step in an eviction process in Arizona that actually removes people from a dwelling.
When you go to somebody's house or apartment to evict them, is that the first contact you personally are having with that person? Or have they had contact with you before and you say, hey, 2 weeks, hey, next week, hey, 5 days, you know, we are coming?
You know, there are a number of different ways we can handle it. Frequently, it will be the very first time that the constable has encountered the folks that live there. In other cases where we know there are some issues there, we do have the ability to work with mental health professionals and others, try to reach out and see if we can find a way to solve some of those issues.
Oh, so the landlord might tip you off and say, hey, guys, this is going to be potentially a problem.
It could be the landlords, it could be the courts, it could be other law enforcement agencies. So families, we really take that information in from every source we can receive it from.
Okay, so when you go in on that day, when you're taking somebody out of their home, what if they say to you, Mike, I'll leave, but I don't have any place to put my stuff. I don't have a moving van. I can't pay for this. I have nowhere to go. What do you do?
Well, you bring up one of the most interesting points, and that is the viewers need to understand people get so emotionally locked into this, they can't see past the eviction. One of the things that we try to do is help them understand there are going to be a number of positive steps that happen from this point forward to help them solve this crisis. One of the first ones is that they have 14 days in Arizona to make arrangements with the landlord so they can come back and get their things when they have a moving van or people to help them with that.
Okay, so they're out, but they have 14 days to return at will and bring their stuff out.
It's not necessarily at will as much as it's a scheduled event with the landlord to be able to come back and get their things and get an opportunity to retrieve them safely and have the ability to do it in a way that makes sense for them. The other thing that can happen then is for us to be able to furnish them with a host of different services that are out in the community. I really like to brag on the state's 211 system. Everyone knows that 911 is for emergencies and 211 is for social service problems in Arizona. And our people make sure they have that information so they can reach out and potentially even get emergency housing.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I don't think people know 211 enough. In your case, you are armed. You're law enforcement. I mean, you were chief of police in Youngtown, for instance, and you were Maricopa County sheriffs for years. So you're firearm trained. You've got a firearm. How many constables? There are 26 in Maricopa County. How many of them are armed?
It's about a quarter. And it's a very in-depth process.
That surprises me.
Well, that in-depth process ensures that only the people who can really work through the dynamics of having a firearm on them and respond appropriately with firearms go through that training. They start work with the first kinds of selection process we would use for new deputy sheriff or police cadets, and they see a psychologist. From there, they go on to a very in-depth school at the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office on weapons themselves and how to clean and care for them and how to carry them and how to be appropriate with weapons at all times.
They're trained like a law enforcement officer.
Like any other law enforcement officer. So you don't just walk in the door and get a gun. You've got to earn that ability. Other constables have decided that they really don't want that responsibility. I can tell you a number of very successful constables, several of which just retired after lengthy 20-plus year careers that never carried a firearm at all. A constable's best tool is their mind and their ability to work with people.
Same as with police work.
Any law enforcement work on the planet, it's going to be the same.
And there are many officers who never pulled their weapon in a career of law enforcement.
Correct.
So, okay, so on the day that you arrive, you've got to psychologically size up this person that you're evicting, right? And you've got to do it quickly to see, are they volatile? Are they hostile? I guess the worst case scenario is when they completely surprise you.
Yeah, and we run into a number of calls today, for instance, where we don't even know who's left in the apartment. As you can well imagine, people that have been, taken out of some other location might find it convenient to take over an apartment where nobody's currently living. Now, we've got to go in and clear that out, and we don't have any idea who we are.
Yeah.
In those cases, though, where we're able to do the research, our guys do a really in-depth background search on the people that we're talking about and who they are, and decide what kind of resources we're going to need before we even head out there.
In the case in Pima County, do you recall, did this person have a record? Were there any red flags that when she went there, I'm talking about Deborah Martinez-Garibay, did she have any inkling that this might be a troublesome situation?
As you can well imagine, no one's ready to quite make comment on that Tucson case yet. One of the things that I would want to reassure the viewers is at the end of a lengthy investigation down in Pima County, as well as any other place where there is a law enforcement shooting and a death, we're going to go back and look at that whole scenario and find out what lessons we can learn from that, see what issues we're training, which issues are potentially policy issues, maybe even legislative issues, and we're going to do a good job on that at the right time. We're a little premature right now.
Yeah, and I guess in a situation like that, people may not realize you're not there alone. You have a team of people with you on that day.
Frequently, we are by ourselves. Frequently, constable may go to several evictions in a row by themselves. The information that we have at that point is
that strikes me as dangerous.
It can be. You can well imagine that when anything triggers us to have a moment where we back up and ask for support from other constables or other law enforcement officers, that's going to be the right thing for us to do no matter what's going on. And that's whether you're a patrol officer, or whether you're a constable, whether you're any other officer. The minute your landscape begins to change and you think there's a threat there that you haven't anticipated before, slowing that event down, stopping, getting back out and getting the help is going to be the way to go.
I want to show, this is the former Pima County Constable, Kristen Randall. This is tape number 2. She left the position, and my understanding is, and she'd been doing this for a while, but in the end she said, I can't do it. There's too many people with nowhere to go. And she said the two main reasons were increasing rent and a lack of housing. And she just felt frustrated. And in the irony of all ironies, the woman who replaced her is the woman who was killed down in Pima County. It's just horrible.
Well, you know, again, as I started out with the segment, there are no winners in eviction cases. You know, when the two parties start out to have a relationship of renter and landlord, they anticipate that's going to be a great relationship that never goes sour. Unfortunately, there are times when it does, and then these other steps along the way prove unsuccessful in finding ways to solve it. And when we get to that very end where it is an eviction process being carried out by court order, whether it's the sheriff or whether it's the constables, it is viewed by a lot of people to be some of the most emotional, heart-rending things they've ever seen. That would include constables. You know, we have feelings still.
Are we looking at more of this as the economy worsens?
Well, as you can well imagine, if you've been following any of the statistics at all, we're actually at the highest numbers in 13 years right now. And many of us believe in a very short period of time, we'll probably be at record eviction numbers, probably not ever been seen before in Maricopa.
One more, in kind of looking at the landscape in Arizona, do you believe that the laws are tipped toward the homeowner or renter? You know, you talk to landlords who say it's impossible to evict people. It's just really difficult. Then you hear other people say it's too easy to kick people out if they don't pay. Where do you think we are on that spectrum?
You know, I actually think we're better off than most states try to be fair towards everybody. You know, again, when you look at what would happen, for instance, if we stopped evictions altogether and no one could be removed for non-payment, for instance, or for failure to provide a safe property or those kinds of things, we would get to the point where people, normal folks, probably wouldn't be able anymore to afford to get a place to live. I think this is part of that process. As unpleasant as it is, it helps to keep a neighborhood clean and you know, the ability for normal people to still get someplace they can rent or live in. And it's important to maintain those kinds of standards.
Mike Branham, who's the Arrowhead precinct constable, and you're about to retire. So best of luck, and we've appreciated the relationship through the years.
Thanks.
Continued
success.
It's
always been a pleasure.
Be safe.
Will do.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
We're back in a minute on Newsmaker Saturday.